Welcome to KRWG Public Media 2024 election coverage featuring the New Mexico House District 51. Hello, I'm Anthony Moreno. It's a pleasure to have you join us for this candidate forum. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters are pleased to present this forum. The rules for this forum are that candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each question, and the candidate should not mention the opponent in the answers. Also, some residents in our region have submitted questions to KRWG Public Media at our website and at station engagement events. We look forward to bringing those community questions to the candidate during this forum. My co-moderator for this forum is Kathy Brook with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. We now welcome District 51 Democratic candidate Ashlie Myers. KRWG Public Media invited incumbent Republican candidate John Block to attend this forum. He informed us he was unable to attend. Let's begin with the first question. Candidate Myers, why do you want to run for this seat?
I am from Alamogordo. I've been there for most of the last 30 years, and I graduated from the high school there. I've raised my children there, and I see year after year, election year after election year, that we have very few competitive races. And by competitive races, I mean there's nobody running against the incumbent, hardly ever. And I have a strong sense of justice, I always have. I think that representation really matters. Representing all members of a community and not just those we side with. That's not a great use of that term, but you know what I mean. And I think that it's important for all of the people in the community to feel represented. And so I decided to run.
All right, we'll move on to our next question.
Ms. Myers, if elected, what are your highest priorities?
I've talked a lot about healthcare, education, veterans, and community. We have a very divided community right now. Otero County itself, there's a lot of divisive politics, and that is important to me, to cross that divide, to find the things that are in common between us and work toward a better community. So that's really like a big deal to me. But as far as my other priorities, I'm a cancer patient, have been for a long time. I've seen, especially in rural New Mexico, the challenges that we face with healthcare. I have to drive 3 hours each way for treatment and for my daughter as well. And the challenges that we have in New Mexico within the healthcare field are tremendous. They're tremendous. And we are having a hard time keeping people in the healthcare field in our state, and finding specialists is very difficult. Our wait times are very high. So that's a big deal to me as well. And then our veterans, we have a high veteran population, a large veteran population in New Mexico, but also in Alamogordo specifically. Have I run out of time?
Yes, that is our time right there, but we'll move on to our next question. Okay. What can state lawmakers do to address violent crime and property crime in New Mexico?
We really do. We have, it's become a problem, crime in New Mexico. I've seen just in Alamogordo, our police logs are longer and longer and longer. I think that it's important to address it, and I'm going to be really honest and tell you that I don't know exactly how, but I know that working together across the aisle and with our local governments is a good, that is a good idea, to just to get together and find good ideas to move forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Mm-hmm.
Ms. Myers, what do you feel the state legislature can do to improve mental health services?
You know, I was looking into that, and we have one state-owned facility, one in the whole state. We probably ought to up that. access to mental health has been a huge barrier, and I'm seeing that, you know, the legislature is looking for they've passed this Medicaid Forward idea, and they're doing the feasibility study right now to bring people into insurance so that they can have health care is an important thing. I'm looking forward to seeing how that feasibility study works, and if we can get more people insured, that would be helpful.
Thank you.
All right, our next question. If elected, how do you plan on addressing substance abuse in New Mexico?
You have to work with other people. Like, we have to know exactly what the problem is. And we do know, studies have shown the root causes of these kinds of disorders and abuses really come from trauma in our lives. And a lot of it goes back to mental health care, behavioral health care. And we need to expand that access. And I mean, I really think that that's at the root of most of our problems in New Mexico, is really having access to the mental health care that we need and treatment facilities that people can access.
Okay, thank you.
This is a community question. What reforms would you support to improve New Mexico's educational ranking?
We've been last for a really long time. It's really unfortunate. My oldest daughter is actually a public educator, and I've seen, as she has moved here from the Midwest, the lack of resources that teachers have and the lack of support that teachers have is a real problem. And we need to find a way to have those spots filled with people. We're low on teachers, but we're lacking those who are support for teachers and for students for their special education needs, for all kinds of needs. We've got to get in there and actually help these teachers. I don't think that they have enough support, and I really think that that's a lot of the problem.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. What's your plan to address affordable housing in New Mexico?
You know, we actually have a county commissioner who is working very hard in Otero County to come up with an affordable housing plan for our county, which we don't currently have. And that, I have to give a huge shout out to Amy Barella for really wanting to help solve this problem that we have. I know that the legislature has raised the minimum wage in New Mexico, and that's great. But when you're working for 40 hours a week at $12 an hour, it's really hard to find affordable housing. So I think we need to expand our availability for funds to help people find housing. That's what I think we really need to do, is expand the funding for people in low-income jobs until we can meet the income needs that we need to meet.
Okay, thank you very much.
Another community question. If elected, what steps would you take to address healthcare challenges in New Mexico? I know you've mentioned
I have
several
mentioned
things.
that. Retention is really a difficult situation, right? And I think it seems to me that we don't do enough in New Mexico to work together. We have a lot of agencies, a lot of people advocating for various things, but I don't know that we do a very good job of going like these people help with this and these people help with this, and let's all work together to actually address why we're not retaining healthcare professionals and why they're choosing other places, because we have great need here. I do know, seems to me from what I've been reading, that our Medicaid reimbursement might be a little slow and maybe a little on the lower end of some, like comparatively, as far as reimbursing healthcare providers. And that would probably go quite a ways in helping retain people.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. How can the legislature address water issues in an increasingly arid state?
We are an increasingly arid state. I'm going to be really honest with you about this one. I haven't looked too much into water stuff. I really haven't. This has been a whirlwind of decision to run, being very new and not knowing. I don't have as many connections as some other people do, and so I'm looking at that. There needs to be a plan. There needs to be a plan to conserve our water. If we want to grow at all, we have to have water, and so it is an important issue. And I'm sorry that I just don't have the answer on me.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to our next question.
Our next one is another community question. What actions do you feel state lawmakers can take to address climate change?
Climate change is a rough one, because you have to balance what we need for this state. I mean, we're an oil and gas state. We are. And we rely heavily on the revenue that is generated from oil and gas. Putting some money into what we have with the wind and the solar, I see it a lot. I drive to Albuquerque a lot. You see a lot of wind farm, a lot of solar. And that's a move in the right direction. And I think, as we move forward and we rely less on oil and gas, this is a tough, climate change is a hard subject. We can see that it's getting hotter and hotter. It's not even, it's 85 degrees out right now, and it's almost October. We have to address it. There has to be a consensus, and we've got to come to an agreement to save our planet, honestly, for future generations, right? I've got kids. They're going to grow up, and what is there going to be? I don't have all the answers. I'm more than willing to sit down with people who have answers.
All right, thank you very much. We'll move on to the next question. In what ways should the state legislature be addressing its child welfare system to create better outcomes for foster children in New Mexico?
CYFD. We've had in the state various revisions, that's not the right word, to try to provide better outcomes, more oversight, and we've got to get the caseloads for workers lower. When a caseworker has as many children that they're trying to look after as we do in New Mexico, it makes it very difficult to have the best outcome for each of those children. So we need to get more caseworkers, for one thing. CYFD does they have a hard job. It's so difficult to place children, to have to take children out of homes, or, counseling services for children. They gotta be there too. We need to have access. Those children need to have access to those kinds of things. Again, I don't have all the answers. I'm here I listen. I'm a good listener, and I want to find ways forward, but I don't have all the answers.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next question.
How can New Mexico continue to bridge the digital divide?
That I don't really understand, that question. Are we asking because there are so many people in New Mexico who have no access still to the internet, really? Okay. I don't have an answer to that question. I don't. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on to the next question. And this is a community question. What would you propose to diversify New Mexico's economy and promote sustainable economic growth?
New Mexico as a whole is doing a decent job at diversifying. We've added the film industry has come in. I mean, Netflix has a space in Albuquerque. I know in Otero County we struggle. The economy, we rely almost solely on our local hospital and the Air Force Base for jobs. Outside of that, the medical field and the military, we're looking at a lot of low-income jobs. There's construction as well, but we're looking at a lot of like chain restaurants, food service. And that has been a struggle I've seen in Alamogordo my entire life. The population is almost the same as it was when I moved here, when I was in middle school in 1993. It's a huge challenge in Otero County for sure. And we have an economic development committee. I would really like to sit down with them and talk about how we can move forward with diversity in this state economically.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Myers, what's your plan to address the growing rates of food insecurity in the state? I actually just participated in a food and housing summit in Alamogordo. We just had one, and various entities came and spoke about affordable housing. And they have this really cool program in Roswell called Rehabs to Rentals. So they're helping homeowners rehabilitate dilapidated homes to then rent to people, and that's really cool. So the food insecurity we talked about, and there are various ways that we're trying to get at this in Otero County. And we have With Many Hands, and we have community gardens, and that's just a tiny, tiny portion. But I'll tell you what, it has made a difference. The people in our community who are able to go and harvest fresh vegetables that they don't have to pay for. We water. We have a watering schedule, and the community takes care of this. That's one small step. And I think that expanding access to SNAP would help too. And I think that we need to do that because you have this income limit and then you don't get any and then you're done. So you make $5 more than that and you don't have enough to buy your family groceries, but now you don't get anything. And I really think that we need to expand that, to have more, maybe a sliding scale, and allow people to keep their benefits to help their family.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the next question. Candidate Myers, what state laws, if any, do you believe should be passed regarding firearm safety?
We have an inherent right in our Constitution to own firearms. There has to be safety nets in place, though, and we did pass a universal background check, and I think that is a great step in the direction of having, I don't want to say barriers because I don't necessarily believe that there should be barriers, but there are people who have some issues who shouldn't necessarily have easy access to weapons that can kill other people or themselves. It's that. I don't know that we need more gun laws. I think that we need to have some common sense in enforcing the laws that we do have, and the background checks is a really, I think that's a good step.
Okay, thank you.
Should New Mexico move to a paid legislature? Please explain your answer.
Isn't that interesting that we don't have that? I had never thought about that, almost all, pay their legislators. And I think that, you talk about pros and cons for both. I'm not in this for the money, I'll tell you that. Like, I never even thought about it before I decided to run. I think you're not in it for the money when you're not getting paid. You can't be. So there's that. But also, if you're not paying your legislators, they have to find another form to pay their own bills, their own employment. And then you have a split. I gotta work 40 hours a week to make money to pay my bills. I don't have a lot of time to think about what's best for New Mexico. So I think maybe we should. I haven't put a lot of thought into it, and I don't know, I haven't looked at what other legislatures are paid. I think maybe we should look at doing that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question. If elected, what steps would you take to support the agriculture industry in New Mexico?
We have a large agriculture industry, and I wasn't really, I mean, pecans, I knew that because I kind of, I grew up down here in southern New Mexico, but we have a lot of agriculture here, and honestly don't have an answer to that question. I support farming, obviously. I would never do anything that would harm farmers or ranchers. I'm just not sure exactly what New Mexico's doing right now in support, and if they need more support. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm more than willing to look into it for sure.
Thank you very much.
What changes, if any, need to be made in the tax structure of the state?
Okay, so I grew up in a middle class home, and I have been throughout my adult life lower middle class into low income. My kids and I have been on Medicaid and had SNAP benefits and all that jazz. So I don't really know a lot about our tax structure in New Mexico. I don't have a lot of tax obligation raising children and being a single mother. And so I'm not sure that we need to fix it, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Thank you.
All right, our next question. What is your plan to improve public transportation?
Well, I can speak to southern New Mexico and where I live, and we have in Alamogordo the Z-Trans, the Zia Transport, and keeping funding to that is incredibly important. I know that a couple years ago we had some big issues with the potential of losing the transportation and I know a lot of people, especially Alamogordo and Cruces, there's a lot of healthcare here in Las Cruces that needs to be accessed, and so we have a lot of people that come over using public transportation. I honestly think we should look into high-speed rails, and I know that we are a very rural state, but we are the 5th largest state. That's a lot of area, and when you're talking about in a rural state, especially for healthcare, obviously I'm going to keep going back to healthcare. If you had high speed between El Paso and Albuquerque and Las Cruces, that would help so many people to be able to have transportation between those things. If I could come to Las Cruces and high speed rail to Albuquerque, I would do that every time instead of driving over 3 hours and putting miles on my car. I think we should look into it, but I don't know a lot about it, but I really think we should look into that.
Okay, we're going to move on to our final question.
How do you feel New Mexico can strengthen outdoor recreation?
I don't think we do enough advertisement. I'm a huge outdoor rec person. I've visited a lot of national parks, are kind of my thing. And I live so close to White Sands National Park, and we've had more tourism, but I don't know that we do a great job of highlighting how beautiful this state is, and the hiking and even kayaking, honestly. I know we don't have a lot of water, but there is water. There are places to go and fish and hunt and enjoy and camp. And I think that we need to do a better job of advertising that, because our trails are great. Our campgrounds are great. I think we just need to advertise more, because we have a beautiful, beautiful state.
That concludes our New Mexico House District 51 Candidate Forum. We want to thank Democratic candidate Ashlie Myers and our co-moderator Kathy Brooke with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. A reminder, you can stay updated with local election coverage by visiting the KRWG News Election Center at our website, krwg.org. I'm Anthony Moreno. Thank you for joining us. Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th.